Welcome to Occupy Boston Radio, the radio for the 99%. This is Occupy Boston Radio News with Sarah Francis and Todd Davis, streaming to you from OBR.FM. This is the news for the week ending Friday, February 10th, 2012. Welcome. We are supported by you, and we can only survive through your generosity. If you would like to support Occupy Boston Radio, we could really use your help. Your donation will support costs associated with streaming, the cost of rent, and perhaps purchase a new microphone or two. Look for full details at occupyboston.org/radio. And thank you. Last Saturday, February 4th, Occupy Boston joined Veterans for Peace and 60 other endorsing organizations in a march demanding there be no war with Iran. Hundreds marched from Park Street Station to the Israeli consulate at the Statler Building in Park Square, then ending with a rally in Copley Square. The United States is following the same path of aggression with Iran as it did with Iraq, using false pretext of WMDs to start a war whose real goal is control of oil by the 1%, said Marilyn Levin, a member of the Action for Peace Working Group. The organizers argue that now that the wars with Iraq and Afghanistan are finally beginning to wind down after more than a decade of fighting, the military-industrial complex needs a new war in order to protect their profits. This action was one of 55 such marches and rallies held around the nation.
More than a week ago, the hacker group Anonymous brought down bpdnews.com, a website run by the Boston Police Department, ostensibly in retaliation for police brutality at OWS. The defaced website played an embedded video of Sound of da Police by KRS-One and included the statement, "Do you remember a few months ago when Anti-Sec attacked the Boston Police Department and released hundreds of passwords in retaliation for the brutality against Occupy Boston? They clearly ignored our warnings because not only did they raid the camp again and kicked protesters off of public parks, but they also sent undercover TSA agents to assault and attempt to steal from some organizers. So you get your kicks beating protesters. That's okay. We get kicks defacing and removing your websites. Again, bpdnews.com, the Boston Police Department virtual community, also fell to the swift, merciless vengeance of the Hive. Do you really want to step to this?" The undercover TSA agent comment refers to the incident on the night of the Occupy Boston eviction when a TSA air marshal prowling the area at 3 a.m. committed assault and battery on an occupier and stole her phone. The agent was arrested and the incident is under investigation. The BPD released a statement saying the skillful technical staff is working diligently to restore the function of bpdnews.com, but a week later the site remains offline and the domain redirects to the department's Facebook page. Detectives are working with the FBI on the case. Both of Boston's daily newspapers this week ran stories examining the spread of the Occupy movement into the suburbs. Though none have encampments, many of the suburban occupations are focused on local issues, as well as the larger systemic issues of income inequality and loss of democracy that are the hallmark of all occupations. A particularly active suburban Occupy is Somerville, which has spearheaded the Occupy the Tea effort, highlighting the massive increase in fares and devastating service cuts the MBTA has under consideration. Occupy Somerville and Occupy the Tea is a fixture of all tea fare hearings. Occupy Malden is particularly interested in foreclosure actions. Occupy Gloucester has the closure of a local hospital as a focus. Occupy Lowell has homelessness and hunger, and the western suburbs of Natick and Newton have taken on the big banks. Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill is famously quoted as saying, "All politics is local," and Occupy is a perfect illustration of that. All of the issues that each local occupation addresses is but the local manifestation of a national and sometimes global systemic problem. Having been abandoned by the power structure in thrall to the 1%, it is up to us, the 99%, to start to fix the system.
This has been a big week in occupation evictions. Occupy DC was evicted this week around 5:30 a.m. last Saturday by the National Park Service in riot gear and hazmat suits, confiscating tents and sleeping bags on one of the coldest nights of the year. This in spite of last-minute legal maneuvers by the occupiers, saying citizens in a free country should not have to ask permission to occupy public space. Park police with badge numbers obscured arrested at least 6, clubbed many, and tasered 1 compliant occupier. Police were observed destroying other non-camping personal property by throwing it in the garbage trucks. Occupy Pittsburgh has voluntarily left People's Park following a victory rally and march on Wednesday. The move came after a deadline for eviction passed at noon on Monday. The group has been occupying a park owned by BNY Mellon Bank for 118 days with noticeable support from the city. The occupiers say, "We fully intend to leave tents in the Occupy Pittsburgh encampment at People's Park, thus making BNY Mellon perform a piece of public performance art, tearing down the structures we have lived in for 118 days, an echo of their destruction of thousands of homes and families they foreclosed on. However, we want to leave the park otherwise spotless." Occupy Portland, Maine has also voluntarily decamped. Occupiers in Portland's Lincoln Park, one of the oldest remaining occupations, have been braving winter Maine weather since October 3rd. Tents were supposed to be removed by Monday, but city officials granted extra 4 days for removal and cleanup. "Just because the occupation is changing form doesn't mean it's going away," said occupier Heather Curtis. Occupy Dayton, whose tent encampment was evicted in December, has moved to a new permanent office in East Dayton. The occupiers have agreed to renovate 3 rooms in the former Third Baptist Church in exchange for free rent. "It's much nicer to be able to focus on getting in there and changing legislation," Direct Action Working Group member Kim McCarthy-Lune said. "That's the kind of thing we're working at. Ballot initiatives and things of that regard on a local level as well as statewide." Occupy Dayton plans to join the nationwide protest against the American Legislative Exchange Council in February. Photojournalist Carlos Miller, who was arrested during Occupy Miami's eviction last week, has been able to recover at least part of the footage deleted from his camera by police in violation of both department policy and the law. A letter from the National Press Photographers Association has been delivered to Miami-Dade Police and Attorney General in protest of both his arrest and the seizure and subsequent deletion of the footage. Miller is no stranger to being arrested for doing his job and has beaten 2 previous arrests for photographing police in the line of duty.
In other Occupy news, Occupy Albany disrupted the New York State budget process Tuesday when around 20 protesters mic-checked a joint session of the New York legislature, calling for millionaires to pay their fair share. Activists unfurled banners highlighting corporate tax loopholes, raising state tuition and tax breaks for the 1%. There were no arrests. About 20 California activists surrounded a local home this weekend to prevent Freddie Mac and Chase Bank from foreclosing on the property, even amid rumors that sheriff's deputies were coming to seize it. The Riverside, California home belongs to Arturo de los Santos, a former Marine who told Riverside City News Service that he fell behind on his payments when business plummeted at the factory where he's employed. Across the country, Occupy Our Homes has drawn attention to these problems by placing homeless families in vacant homes, disrupting foreclosure auctions, and forcing banks to renegotiate mortgage terms on properties in foreclosure.
Occupy Dallas has established a Monsanto working group which, along with Occupy Austin, is planning action against the agribusiness during the Occupy the Corporation's National Day of Action, scheduled for February 29. Earlier this week, Monsanto was caught illegally planting herbicide-tolerant, or HT, maize in its GM maize trial in India. HT maize, like other GM foods manufactured by Monsanto, is corn which is genetically manipulated to be resistant to Roundup and other Monsanto herbicides, so that poison can be spread freely, killing all plants except those that have been genetically modified. Other Monsanto GM foods even produce their own herbicides. A peer-reviewed study released in 2010 showed that 3 tested varieties of Monsanto's GM corns can cause organ failure in rats. In a related item, President Obama this week spun the revolving door of lobbyists and officials and installed Michael Taylor, former VP and lobbyist for Monsanto, as a senior advisor to the Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA is the agency in charge with the responsibility to oversee the safety of the nation's food supply. Before taking his latest position at Monsanto, Taylor wasn't formally an official at the FDA in the 1990s and allowed GM foods into the nation's food supply without a single test for safety or risk. He is also responsible for doggedly fighting against labeling milk as being from cows treated with bovine growth hormone. More evidence that the Occupy movement is changing the national conversation. In a rare display of bipartisan support, the U.S. Senate this week approved a ban on congressional insider trading by a vote of 96-3. The Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge, or STOCK Act, would make it illegal for congressional members and staff to profit from knowledge gained in hearings or during the course of business that is not known to the general public. It would also amend the Ethics in Government Act of 1978 to require disclosure of financial transactions involving financial instruments within 30 days. Scott Brown, Republican of Massachusetts, has been an advocate of the measure, saying, "The truth is, members of Congress have access to all kinds of sensitive information, and it has to be clear that that information is being used to serve the country, not to make a personal profit." The Republican-controlled House is scheduled to vote on its weakened version of the bill as this news is recorded. A study from Javelin Strategy and Research released this week shows that in the last 90 days, Americans changed banks at 3 times the normal rate. Javelin's research estimates that 5.6 million U.S. adults with a banking relationship changed providers in the last 90 days, and 11% of those cited Bank Transfer Day and Occupy Wall Street as their reason, and actually moved their accounts from large to a smaller institution. It was the first time that Move Your Money Project and the Occupy movement has had a significant and measurable impact on Javelin's analysis. In a related item, the city of Berkeley, California is also moving its money. Last Tuesday, the Berkeley City Council voted unanimously to remove $300 million in city assets from Wells Fargo and has begun a search for a more socially responsible organization which can handle the size and quantity of transaction the city requires. A Wells Fargo spokesman said, "Over the past 3 years, Wells Fargo has donated more than $3 million, with an M, dollars to 89 nonprofits in Berkeley. Yet Wells Fargo was a major player in the subprime collapse, originating or co-issuing over $74 billion with a B dollars in subprime mortgages. Wells Fargo also took almost $37 billion in taxpayer money in bailout funds and an unknown amount of the $8 trillion Fed emergency fund."
The New York Times is reporting that the Securities and Exchange Commission is avoiding penalizing large banks for misdeeds. An analysis by the New York Times of the SEC investigations over the last decade found nearly 350 instances where the agency has given big Wall Street institutions and other financial companies exemptions to laws and regulations that act as a deterrent to securities fraud. In his State of the Union address last month, President Obama asked Congress for more stringent laws to make penalties for fraud count. Yet as the Times shows, even current laws are not enforced for Wall Street giants, often paying small fines and promising not to break the law again in the future. U.S. House Speaker John Boehner, Republican of Ohio, said this week that it was time for the government to stop helping those with underwater mortgages, claiming that none of the current programs to help homeowners work. Boehner said all it does is delay the clearing of the market. As soon as the market clears and we understand where the prices really are, will be the most important thing we can do in order to improve home values. President Obama has called for legislation that would allow the FHA to modify mortgages of those that are underwater but current. A White House spokesman said letting the market hit bottom and clear out, as Boner suggested, was not a useful response to families struggling with overpriced mortgages. In a reversal of stated policy this week, President Obama has endorsed a super PAC working on his behalf. Super PACs were enabled by the Supreme Court ruling in the Citizens United case that said corporations and the wealthy could inject unlimited amounts of money into the political process. Claiming he must compete on a level playing field, Obama endorsed the Priorities USA Action PAC. The move was widely denounced by political reform advocates. In his State of the Union address, Obama blasted the Citizens United's decision, saying it would open the floodgates for special interests, and it represented a threat to our democracy. Democrat advisors said they changed their minds when they saw the flood of money pouring into Republican primary campaign PACs. And speaking of super PACs, the first round of super PAC donation disclosures was released last week. In 2011, 10 groups and individuals gave $1 million each to Mitt Romney's Restore Our Future PAC. Those 10 included the 4 investment or hedge fund managers, 2 Utah-based shell companies with no known business dealings, and John Paulson, who made billions selling subprime mortgages. Those giving $500,000 include the Marriott Brothers and several managers at Bain Capital, Romney's former venture capital firm. Of these contributing $250,000 or more to winning Our Future, the super PAC supporting Newt Gingrich includes 4 relatives of Sheldon Adelson, who himself contributed $10 million in January. Stephen Colbert's Americans for a Better Tomorrow PAC raised $825,000 through December 31st.
And in the latest from the election parade, Rick Santorum swept the primaries and caucuses last weekend, winning in Missouri, Minnesota, and Colorado, beating presumed frontrunner Mitt Romney in every forum. In the Colorado caucus, it was Santorum 40%, Romney 35%, Gingrich 13%, and Ron Paul 12%. In the Minnesota caucus, it was Santorum 45%, Paul 27%, and Romney third with 17%. And in the Missouri primary, it was Santorum 55%, Romney 25%, and Ron Paul 12%. These results come on the heels of Romney's earlier win in Nevada and Florida. While none of these votes is binding on delegates, it does highlight weaknesses in Romney's campaign. The primary parade now moves to Maine on February 11. And on Friday last week, Army Major General Michael Linnington referred all charges against PFC Bradley Manning to a general court-martial. Manning now faces 22 charges in leaking 700,000 documents to WikiLeaks and faces possible life imprisonment. Here are some coming events for the week. The Occupy film series starts on Thursday, February 16. The Howard Zinn Memorial Lecture Series, part of the Free School University, presents Occupy Film, a film and discussion series on occupied peoples and people's occupations. The first 2 films, Left on Pearl and 3,000 Years in Life, will be shown on February 16 and February 23, respectively, at the Community Church in Copley Square at 565 Boylston Street. The Students Occupy Boston Summit will be held on Sunday, February 12 at Emerson 105 in Harvard Yard. The purpose of the summit is to use the time and space to strengthen the relationships and exchange ideas among students who have been or want to be involved with the Occupy movement. If you're curious and never participated in Occupy, this could be a good opportunity to understand the organic nature of the movement. If you haven't occupied yet, it's time you do.
You're listening to Occupy Boston Radio News. Here are some happenings this week. This Friday, February 10th, from noon until 2 p.m., Strategic Action Planning is meeting at Diesel Cafe in Somerville. You can find that in Davis Square. We also have a meeting of the Free School University Working Group meeting. They're meeting at their usual location on Fridays, the Harvest Food Co-op Community Room at 581 Massachusetts Avenue in Cambridge. This is going to be happening from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Friday the 10th, today. There's also an outreach working group meeting. They're going to be meeting at E5, that's 33 Harrison Avenue in Boston, Mass. That is in the heart of Chinatown. They're meeting from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Friday, February 10th. We also have on Friday, February 10th today, the Space Working Group meeting. They're meeting from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., also at E5, 33 Harrison Avenue in Boston in Chinatown. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at First Parish in Cambridge, the Decolonize to Liberate Working Group is meeting. So that's going to be at First Parish Church in Cambridge, which is at 3 Church Street in Cambridge. It's across from the Harvard T-Stop. We also have from 7 to 9 p.m. the Radio Working Group meeting. So that's us here at Radio. We meet at City Place, which is the State Transportation Building. It's at the corner of Stewart and Tremont. We welcome you to come out anytime between 7 and 9 and talk to us a little bit about any show that you might want to do, any work that you might be able to do behind the scenes in radio, or any equipment that you might want to donate to us. Please come on out, 7 to 9 for Radio Working Group meeting at City Place. From 7 to 9 also, Safer Spaces Cluster Meeting is happening at E5. Again, that's 33 Harrison Avenue in Boston in Chinatown. From 7 to 9, Safer Spaces Cluster Meeting. From 7 to 9, there's also meeting the Inter-Occupy Communications Working Group meeting. They're meeting at E5, 33 Harrison Avenue, and they'd be happy for you to come on down and let them know that you're interested in finding out what's happening in other occupies. So also happening this weekend on Saturday, February 11th, there's going to be a peace vigil at Park Street Key Station. This happens every Saturday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. So go ahead and get on down there, hold up a sign, and let people know that you're here for peace. From 3 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, February 11th, Occupy Boston Affinity Group and Capacity Building Training is happening. This will be happening at E5, 33 Harrison Avenue. From 3:30 to 4:45, there's a facilitation working group meeting, City Place Food Corp. So facilitation meets 4 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday and Sunday. So you should come on down and join one of those. From 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. is General Assembly, and that will be happening at Community Church of Boston, 565 Boylston Street. Moving on to Sunday, February 12th. So moving on to the rest of this weekend, from 1 to 2:30 p.m. on Sunday, February 12th, is the Faith and Spirituality Working Group meeting, and that's going to be happening at Arlington Street Church. From 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., the Icarus Project, formerly Boston Mad Pride, will be meeting at E5, 33 Harrison Avenue. We also have from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., the People of Color Working Group is meeting at E5, 33 Harrison Avenue. From 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., the Boston Occupier Working Group is meeting. They'll be meeting at City Place, which is the Transportation Building. 8 to 10 Park Plaza is the address listed. From 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., City Resolution to End Citizens United Task Force meeting will be happening at City Place. So again, that's the Transportation Building, the corner of Tremont and Stewart. From 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. is the Action Assembly. This is what we used to know as GA on Sundays, and now it's become the Action Assembly. It's happening from 5 to 9:30 at Community Church of Boston, which is at 565 Boylston Street, across from Copley. Please join us for these events this weekend. We'd be happy to see you out there, and you'll be occupying your nation.
And this is the Occupy protest weather for the weekend of February 12 and 13. Weather Underground is calling for a 40% chance of snow on Saturday, with temperatures hovering in the mid-30s for most of the day. And on Sunday, expect colder temperatures with highs reaching only 27 under partly cloudy skies. So stay warm while you're out there occupying. And that's it for the news. This has been Occupy Boston Radio News with Sarah Francis and Todd Davis, streaming to you from OBR.FM for the week ending Friday, February 10, 2012. Remember, we can only continue with your generous support. Please visit occupyboston.org/radio for more information. Your generosity is appreciated.